Hi, welcome to Two Non-Doctors. I'm Liz Mealy.
I'm Maria Shahada.
Can I tell you what happened to me this week?
Yes.
It didn't happen to me. It's kind of silly. So at the beginning of all this, a year ago, I rearranged my entire room. I moved everything around. I almost forget how my room was set up before. I had this kind of table thing that was near the door that's now near my bathroom door. And I keep nail files in it. I had pens in it. I had just miscellaneous crap in it. But I was filing my nails. I went to put it back. We're about putting things back this year. You take it out,
Yeah.
you put it back. I put it back, and then I saw that there were pens in there, and I was like, it doesn't really make sense that there's pens in this little holder anymore because it's not in a place that really pens across the room by a bathroom. What am I doing? So I was about to take them out, and then I look and I was like, what is in there? I found my knife.
Your switchblade. Oh, every woman needs a switchblade.
But it's shiny. People listening, it's purple, green, shiny. It's those douchey cars, or there's even nail polish that's
there
reflective.
are forks. I saw utensils like that. That
I would
same
totally
iridescent
those. I look crazy
quality
holding
to
this
it.
knife with my little pineapple hair.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you have to understand. So my mom bought me this, I don't know, 5 years ago. There was some deal on Amazon or something. Who knows where my mom
My
got
mom
this
buys me dresses.
My mom buys me weapons. My safety cat my mom got me for Valentine's Day 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And then when it got taken away by the police, she's like, I'll buy you another one. My mom's like, you can't be without your weapons. But she bought me this knife, I think the next year after she got me the safety cat, because she wanted it. It was cost effective in a 3-pack. So then she bought one for me, I think, and then one for Em. I don't know. She was just like, these girls live in a city. They need their weapons. It's a good knife. I really like it. Not that, I'm going to accidentally stab myself. I know what's going to happen in the end, but I carried it around with me. But the problem is we travel, or we used to travel.
They don't let you bring that over here.
Pre 9/11, you couldn't go on a plane with this type of knife. But because and I know, so I have my safety cat and my pepper spray on my keys, and it's just habitual. They're hanging. I take them off. I've never accidentally taken those weapons to the airport, but this isn't on a keychain or anything. And I had it in my backpack, and I was like, take this out of your backpack. And I must have put it in this weird thing. And then I've been looking for it for years. I literally called my mom up. I was like, I found my knife. She didn't know it was missing. And I was like, yeah, I was pretty sure I lost it in my room or somebody had it.
Liz Mealy's weapons, it's like a gallery. It's like you know, like it would be like a joke in a movie where a guy goes over to his father, his girlfriend's father's house, and there's a wall of weapons.
Yes.
That's sort of what your room is like. And when I stayed in Brooklyn for a month or two waiting on my visa a few years ago, and you were out of town, but you let me use your knuckles, your
Safety
brass
cat.
Safety cat knuckles, and I felt so safe, because
Yeah.
after comedy shows, you're walking back from the subway, and I just had them, and I felt better about myself. I remember turning out the lights because I was leaving and going back to London, and I turned the lights off, and I hung your keys, and then I hung your safety cat. It was it was my protector.
I had an old joke about a taser. So my sister moved to DC for school, my older sister, and he got her a taser. I live in New York City. I want a taser. That was the whole joke, was just being like, I want a taser. And I had this joke as one of those jokes I always did. And my aunt, my dad's sister, mailed me a taser. So somewhere in this room is also a taser.
Just needs to be a Home Alone version of your house where a burglar breaks in, but keeps tripping up on all your weapons, just accidentally tases himself and then trips on a rope. Ties himself up.
And I think we all know it's going to be my cat biting his ankles that really stops
him. In the end,
it's going to be so. It's going to be
pasta.
My safety cat is a real cat.
Yeah.
I just like weapons. I just like them.
Yeah.
I think there's just something about being small. I think being a woman, yes, but there's just something actually about being small that it just makes me feel better. That I feel like Edward Scissorhands. I found different ways to protect myself. When I lived in the East Village, a girl got raped literally down the street from me, and there was a serial rapist, and it was, and my street was really well lit in the East Village because there was that 24-hour diner.
I feel like it's really dangerous being a serial rapist, because you're gonna rape a bunch of women. That's a lot of STDs that you can catch. Why would you risk your own life?
I don't think that's I love your perspective.
It just feels really dirty. Like a serial killer, I get, but serial rapist is just
foul. You're just like, are you really thinking about the longevity of your health, sir? But it was, I remember there's a serial rapist. This thing happened to this girl, horrible. And it was like truly down the street for me. And I was so petrified that I had my pepper spray. I don't think I had my safety cat yet. I had my pepper spray and I would walk down the street at midnight like this, no exaggeration. Just like, almost like, when driving, it's like 10 and 2. I was like, pepper spray, this hand is here for slapping. Like I was really
unless
scared.
These serial rapists are going for a challenge, I think that's the right thing to do. Cause like they don't want a fight. They want someone that's just like on their phone, like, or they've got too many bags. If you're holding a bunch of, this is me all the time. I'm always carrying like 80 bags. But if you're out there with pepper spray, like, motherfucker, I do that all the time. I walk with like keys between knuckles. I'm like charging down the street. I'm like, if you want to fuck with me, it's going to be a fight,
I'm just like randomly
go for someone
screaming.
easier.
I'm just like, like just being like, I'm screaming before I even need to scream. Did I ever tell you I do this? So sometimes when I'm scared walking home at night, a way to kind of both comfort myself, but also look a little crazy is I'll work on my new jokes. So I will out loud start practicing the joke. And then I never keep my hands in my coat because I always want to have slapping hands available. So in general, I gesticulate a lot. So I'm now on the street and even my jokes, I'm ranting, but I look like a mad woman. Makes me feel safer. And I live in a safe neighborhood, but I think just in general, late at night, you just get a little spooked.
My neighborhood's a little burglary. It's a little takey.
A little take your stuff. I'm fine. You can take my bag.
This place has been burgled. And they say, not while I was living here, because they would never do it again. But like, no, they say like places that have been burgled will get burgled again because you're cucks. No, because like, I don't know what I think it's just because they know the lay of the land. I thought
it was just like a map. Like it was just like 4 guys being like, I robbed them 3 weeks ago and it was super easy.
Oh shit, really? Do you think they might have replenished? All right.
Yeah.
Oh,
I see Amazon packages every day.
Yeah. No, but I was reading up on this and like, because there's something called like the Nottingham Knocker. And it started in Nottingham, I guess, but like it's these people who they'll knock on the door and claim to have like just gotten out of jail, and to raise money, they're selling these things, right? Like random shit, like whatever they could get their hands on. So like kitchen sponges, like one guy on the Nextdoor app was like, I had just bought a kitchen sponge. I didn't want another kitchen sponge. And he got so mad at me, which is so funny, as if you were supposed to buy your kitchen sponges from him. What were you thinking? But like, it's not about the sponge. Like whether you buy it or not, he was being aggressive towards people who were like rejecting him or like turning him away or whatever. But it's mostly about scoping your place out. So they'll look behind you, whatever's going on with your money, like they'll sniff the money to see if it's old and musty or if it's fresh. If you have fresh money, they're going to like consider you to have a lot of it. If you have like old crumpled up bills that have been in a drawer forever, maybe not. If you're frail.
Because guys live here, I think I always feel, and I'm like very rarely alone. Like Chris works from home. So it's like, there's a part of me that has always felt safe just because I live with several dudes and someone's always home. Like even like, so I had a leak in my roof and I had like 3 guys in my room, but both my roommates were home. Like that, I think if I was alone, I would feel weird, but I don't, because there's always like, I have 70.
Yeah, of course.
Announcements.
Yeah.
Thank you to all our Patreons. We genuinely appreciate you. You guys are wonderful. Of course, if you're not a Patreon, we give away stickers, early access to episodes, bonus episodes, starting, was it end of February, early March? Right now we have a bonus episode every month. We're going to start having bonuses every week. You can control our Googles. You can come on and be a Google guest. Yeah, thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Follow us on the socials: YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, at 2 non-doctors, number 2 full word doctors, Instagram at 2 non-DRS. If you haven't subscribed to us, subscribe. And if you can, leave us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. It helps us out a lot. And even if you don't listen on Apple Podcasts, like it helps us be seen, helps us feel good. And thank you for everyone who's left really kind reviews so far.
We've
been posting them
this week.
Yeah, that was really nice. And that made us feel fantastic. So, oh my God. Sorry.
What?
My Adobe Flash player needs needs me to update.
Immediately.
And so like pushes Zoom off the screen.
Baby announcement, Zoom Diner. It's my new material workshop show that I've been doing since the beginning of quarantine. We have a great show coming up February 7th with Maria Shahada.
That's me.
That's you. And Carmen Lynch. It is 4 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Londony time. I don't
Yes,
actually
that's
know
right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, it's right.
Yes. See, you yelled at me last time and I was like, we're not going to have this fight. And then 1 p.m. Pacific time. I just don't know. You know, it's funny, like Eastern time, Pacific time. I don't know what Londony time is. Like, what do you call that?
GMT.
GMT.
Greenwich something time. Unless it's the summer, then it's like British summertime. I don't know. It's very strange, but you can say GMT. Fan mail?
Fan mail.
All right. This one's from Cregor on our Patreon. So he's responding to
so we did a bonus episode about drug use, drug stories, and I told a story about getting weed from kind of a friend, like a guy that I met a couple of times that worked at a comedy club in Connecticut, and getting this, joint and smoking it later with you and another friend, but you had a puff and me and the other friend split it and we got destroyed. And it was like, it had to be laced with, I felt strung out. I was vomiting. You were
vomiting out of the Uber I ordered, just out the window. And then got shitty towards the Uber driver going, I'll clean it.
So I tell this on this bonus episode about drugs. I tell this long ass story about it. And Maria basically took care of me and this other friend, but it was like super scared. Like he was scared out of his mind. It was like, what was that? And was angry. And I was like, I'm so terrified. Like it was long story. Anyway.
That's what scares me about the weed over here. It's like anything could be in it. Anything. So Craig's response was, so I asked a buddy of mine that used to be pretty heavy in the drug scene about the bad weed you talked about. He says it was definitely laced and has a pretty good idea of what it was. From the symptoms and the side effects, he says it was most likely GHB from a degreasing solvent. If you can remember a small sizzle when lighting and an undertone of burnt hair smell, then that was it. GHB.
I didn't know what GHB was. Do you know what GHB is?
Well, they said a degreaser solvent.
But do you know what's more commonly used for?
No.
It's a date rape drug because they say it's basically odorless and colorless. So what it's supposed to be used for, like, FDA is like, it helps with narcolepsy and not narcolepsy, like helping with like sleep and stuff because you like pass out, but it's now used as a date rape drugs. And so they go health hazards due to the use, sweating, loss of consciousness, nausea, auditory and visual hallucinations, headaches, vomiting, exhaustion, sluggishness, confusion, clumsy, amnesia. I was like, oh my God, almost half of those symptoms is how I felt. I thought there was like heroin in it. I felt strung out. I felt heavy, kind of passing out. I was vomiting. I felt confused. Like it was the most disoriented I've ever felt in my entire life. And I just knew it was laced with something, but like I've never done hard drugs before. I texted that friend the next day because I was a mess for like a full day afterwards, like vomiting. I had to go to Amsterdam. I say that in the story where I'm like vomiting in a bag getting on a plane. He was like, no, that's the normal thing.
He didn't experience any of those side effects.
Well, I was like, because Sam was like, what was in that? I was like, I don't know. So I'm asking this dude, I was like, dude, we got destroyed. What was in this? He's like, it was just regular weed. And I was like, so now I can't figure out if this guy, when like things just get harder and hard, like you just get number to the effects of drugs that you go, there's a half-life for things and you have to eventually take stronger and stronger. That's why they say like somebody might do a bunch of heroin, be able to take on all that heroin. Then they stop and they think, oh, I need that same amount of heroin. And their body has recovered or it does. And then they accidentally kill themselves with it. So I think in general, maybe he built his way up to this really hard drug and that's what he needs to sleep at night, or that's how much drugs he needs to cope. I don't know. But I was like, the fact that he thought that was normal weed. And then even Sam, like he smoked pot regularly and he was like, what the fuck was that? Like, it was so awful. I'm pretty sure Cregor and his friend are right. And it's horrifying. A little fun, sad fact. A bunch of guys invented a nail polish that when you dip it in your drink and there's a date rape drug, it changes colors. Sad that they had to invent it, but pretty cool.
Really cool. That's so funny. So it's like you have red nail polish on and then you dip your finger in and it's like, what's this? Why am I pink? I hate pink. I didn't want to be pink.
Yeah.
Why did you drug me? Now look at this. I'm pink.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I changed nail colors and they're like, so, and you're like, the police
No.
are on their way.
Yeah.
They're on their way. So yeah, thank you, Cregor. We appreciate you. You want to get into Google's?
Yep.
We have Katie Nolan. She works at ESPN. She has a great podcast called Sports with a question mark. Thank you for coming, Katie.
Thank you for having me, both of you. I love you both. I'm sure it's a podcast, so nobody knows, but you both have great curls today. Your curls are off the charts.
We were
I spent
almost
all
fishing.
lockdown 1 figuring out how to do good curls, and like it's been consistent. We've talked about it ad nauseum on the podcast, but it means a lot to me.
What did you Google this week?
I don't know if you guys know, pandemic, we're in it. And it's been a lot for a lot of people. I'm very blessed. I've been trying to acknowledge the things that I have that I'm grateful for, like a dog and a job. But I have like 8 bosses. And then I have a boyfriend, but he's a stand-up comedian. And so you all know he's got trauma we've got to work through. Love him to death. But then some days, all of those things that I'm being patient with stack up on top of each other in addition to the pandemic. And I just have no patience. And yesterday was one of those days where it was just like, the next person who doesn't do exactly what I've made it perfectly clear that I need them to do. I wrote out all the instructions. If they don't follow those, I'm going to lose it. And I feel justified, because to me, that's the worst part, when you're like, this isn't my fault. I'm going to yell at you and feel good about it. That's when I know we're like in a danger zone. So this might not count as a Google, but I technically Googled. I tweeted like, what do you do when you're about to lose all patience and you have the rest of the day? It's like 2:00. And somebody was like, oh, the mammalian dive reflex. And I was like, okay, sure, of course.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the mammalian diving reflex?
Never.
Not at all.
Apparently it's this thing that we all have, we being mammals. It's a physiological response to immersion that overrides the way your it overrides your homeostasis, and it moves blood to your vital organs, and your spleen releases a bunch of red blood cells, and a ton of oxygen goes to your brain, and it makes you calm down, and it drops your heart rate. And all you have to do, is the best part, is like fill your sink with cold water, hold your breath, and put your face into it. That's it.
How cold is this water?
It doesn't have to be crazy cold. I have not even seen a degree specified. So just coldish.
So you're just kind of waterboarding yourself.
Kind of. I mean, yeah. The important part is that the water has to get inside of your nostrils. Do I know why? No. But if that's where the button is, I'll push it.
That's good, because like if I'm having a good hair day, I'm not going to want to submerge my face in water.
You can keep that up. You can just do the nose.
Yeah. Got it.
Just dip your whole, splash it in your face.
But how crazy are you gonna look when like Dan comes home and you're and he tries to say something to you and you're like, hold on. So he follows you to the bathroom, you submerge your face and hold it there. And he's like, are we breaking up? And then you come out and you're like, I'm ready. And then he has to deal with what that means.
Well, but isn't it worth it then that the answer to the question he asked was yes before I mammalianed myself into the water, and now it's no? Like, if I'm about to be like, get out of my house, and instead I dip my face in water, it's no weirder than when he does his weird breathing exercises in the middle of the kitchen.
Can you do your yoga in the bedroom like an adult?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm all good with you doing planks. That's so good, honey. That's so awesome. I'm so happy for you. It's just when you do them, you breathe really weird and it makes our dog uncomfortable. So like, could you do them like in the hallway or something? It's like really uncomfortable to hear.
And then before you say anything else, you just literally have buckets around your house with cold water.
I'm gonna be like the kid from Signs and just leave buckets of water around the house so that whenever mom's about to have a freak out, I just dunk my face into a bucket. Anyway, I've tried it yesterday. It worked a little. I'm always afraid, like, there's got to be a backfire to this, or else people would constantly be dunking their faces in water. Like, I could probably go too hard and then have to go to the hospital. And then what an embarrassing. I thought I was a whale, so now I'm here at the hospital. What an embarrassing reason to go.
Well, let me get this straight. You submerged your own face in water.
And like, lady, are you telling me that you tried to kill yourself? And I'm like, well, technically, I was trying to live. I was trying to stop myself from killing myself.
Trying to save my relationship.
I accidentally drowned. Can you fix it? Be sure to dunk responsibly. That feels like something we should all say. Just don't hold your breath for too long. That's not a good move. All right. Bye, ladies.
Really
Thank you so much. You're the best.
Bye.
Seriously, your hair all looks great. I'm just I'm so proud of both of you.
Stop trying to make out with us. You want to go first?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I got a flu shot. They call them flu jabs here. They call shots jabs here. And I'm like, that's so aggressive. But then I'm like, I guess shot is pretty aggressive.
Yeah, that's true.
But I was feeling pretty nauseous this morning and yesterday.
Like right afterwards, or like it's
a couple days. It was in the morning. I was coming back from Johnny's, so I was dressed like for how cold nighttime is. I had like tights on and jeans and my coat and a hat and then it was the morning, so it wasn't as cold. But I felt like I was like really sweaty and I felt nauseous and stuff. Did I unfortunately get the flu before? It's supposed to take 2 weeks to kick in. Or is it just part of like what happens when you get the flu shot? But common side effects of a flu shot are soreness, redness, or swelling where the shot was given. Fine. My arm is fine. Gorgeous. Headache, low grade. Yes, I've had that for a couple of days. But I've also right about to start my period and I usually get headaches then too. So don't know. Fever? No. Nausea? Yes. Muscle aches and fatigue? Fatigue, yes, but I'm always tired. And then muscle aches, no. And it can occasionally cause fainting.
I know the flu is really bad, but like after hearing all those symptoms, I'm just a little bit like, so you have to get the flu to get the flu shot? Like, you know what I mean? Like you're just
might as well just get the flu. Well, the only reason I got one is because they were saying like how dangerous it could be if you got COVID and the flu at the same time.
Yeah. I get that.
And because what really happened was I was at the pharmacy and they were like, do you want to get a flu shot? And I was like, and they were like, we only have so many, so like, you know, if you want to, you should buy it now and then get it when you're ready. And I was like, okay. It was one of those things where it's like I was like, I should get it, but I didn't really have real plans to do it. And then I was sort of convinced into buying one.
Peer pressured into taking care of yourself
by the pharmacist. Yeah.
Big pharma trying to keep me alive.
He was such a nice guy, that guy.
Have you thought about your future? And you're like, stop it, Dad. Just trying to make sure.
Well, I mean, my dad's told me to get a flu shot too. So it's it seems to be like generally the thing to do.
Yeah, no, I've heard. You did a good thing. I hope you feel better.
Yeah, thanks.
Out during our podcast.
I'm fine now. It was just this morning and yesterday. Felt a bit off at times.
So this has been going on forever. And I just finally Googled it because I find it so weird. I get bumps on like my ear. And when I touch them, they get bigger and it freaks me out. It freaks me out in general, and they're not pimples. So I'll get like on my cartilage, usually like cartilage or like right behind, like where my ear connects. Cause I have an earlobe that connects to my head. So where my earlobe connects to my head or like right behind my ear, and I'll get this bump, I'll like notice it. Cause it's like where I put in earrings or whatever, or in general, I'm always touching my ears. I'll notice it. And then it's like, you know, you feel something because you're just like, what the hell is it? And I'm like doing investigative journalism on my ear, and then it'll get bigger. So the next time I touch it, I'm like, it's bigger, and it's freaking.
Wait a minute. When you say it gets bigger, does it like before your eyes get bigger? Like, are you feeling it and then like just be like, woo, or is it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. It's super weird. So it's a benign cyst. It's like apparently super common, and it will just go away without treatment. And sometimes it does get bigger. They say that, but that will also go away with treatment. The only time to actually see a doctor about it is if it gets like noticeably larger, or it's like causes pain, or it affects your hearing. Like it like is, but it's called a Cebus. I'm putting extra letters in there, but it's a Cebus cyst. It's a type of cyst made up of dead skin cells and oils produced by oil glands in your skin. And I think in general, I'm very oily. So I think acne wise, like I think it's why I don't look my age is because I always say I have this natural moisturizer because I have very oily skin. But in general, I think that's also why I have acne in my 30s. But then clearly that's also why I'm getting these like weird benign cysts, is because I make olive oil with my face.
That's like, disgusting. Never say that again.
I cook with it. I recycle it. I told you everything about this with Grocery Out. The cyst itself didn't bother me. It was the fact that if I touched it too much, it would get bigger. And I'm like, and then you don't know what to do because you're just like, I don't know. Like, it's getting bigger, but it doesn't.
How does it go away?
It just goes away. I try to ignore it. I try to pretend it's not there. And then when I go to touch my ear.
So it's like an ego?
Yeah.
Pay attention to it, it gets bigger. And if you ignore it, it like diminishes.
I just for a week, I'm just like, don't think about it.
Just don't talk to it. Nobody look at it.
Nobody look at it. Nobody say it looks pretty. And then like a week later, I'd be like, oh, it's gone. Okay. All right. Everybody's cool.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And we're on to, what do we have after Google?
Let's get personal.
Let's move away.
We are, this is a let's get personal.
Yeah, I love it.
We're kind of living like the same day over and over again. So my question is, but if you could do whatever you want again for one day, what would your perfect day look like?
I'm flying to Paris for lunch. I'm having maybe some mussels with some bread. Fuck it, it's my perfect day. So there's going to be a perfect morning, right? So a glass of wine, right? With it, some white wine. I don't even like white wine, but it just goes with mussels. So salad.
Your perfect day is just this meal right now. My favorite is
like, it's like a meal I could have like in an hour. But I'm in Paris.
Yeah.
And then what do I want to do on my perfect day? I don't know. I'm fucking Hemingway, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not fucking Hemingway. I'm Hemingway.
I like how you're like, let me put the punctuation in this sentence.
And so me and a bunch of people, we're sitting around, we're talking, we're philosophizing, we're discussing stuff, we're being funny. And then I do a comedy show that night and I talk about all the funny things I said earlier. And then, and everybody's standing out. And then
you know what's funny about this? Is our perfect day.
Go back to my, one more time. Back to my flat, huge terrace, huge, beautiful French doors open up.
Okay, your perfect day is that you are a different person with different financials than you currently have.
Same person, different money.
Yeah. I was like, somehow you became a millionaire after things got better, which I'm proud of you. Like, good for you. You must have invested.
You said perfect day. You didn't say perfect day within your means.
I guess I was saying if we could get our old life back like this. You
my old life was that. Do you remember my old life?
Yeah, there was no terrace. Let's be honest about the terrace.
No, there was a 5-floor walk up.
Okay, what I find funny, because I'll tell you mine, what I find funny is they're not too dissimilar. It's where the details are. That's my favorite part of this, is that like it's kind of the same day without the detail. Like so it's funny, I thought about would I want to travel? If I only have one day, I have to already be there. I do not want to travel on my perfect day. I don't, you know what I mean? No, there's going to be nothing more than.
Absolutely. You're right about that. Wake up.
Yeah. A
you're
subway.
There.
You're already in France, or you're on like, I'm okay with like a train or something for like an hour. I don't want to go through security on my perfect day. I fucking definitely don't want to be.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
Time zones. Anyway. So I just wake up, no alarm, just wake up. I go to the gym. I have a great workout that makes me fuck off. I have a great workout that makes me feel like I pushed myself, but I'm not exhausted. I shower. Apparently I've decided that's in my perfect day. I dress pretty, lunch with a friend, and then I work in a coffee shop. I get a bunch done. I feel super productive. I feel hilarious. I feel like the world is changing under my notebook. I do some spots. I feel like $1 million. People are like, why don't I know who you are? I'm like, I don't know. And then I have dinner with a friend. And it's pretty much exactly what my life was before, almost to a T. It's so funny. Like you added a terrace, but the truth of the matter is that we were able to kind of do whatever we wanted. We got to see the friends and hang out with them. We got to write and be creative. We would do spots and we would be in different places. But I literally, when I thought about it, I was like, I just want my life back.
What a realization, right? Like, it's like we were living out our perfect lives already, and maybe we were taking it for granted. Like when I was putting pictures up, I wanted to look for pictures of like cafes in Europe and stuff online, and I was like, wait a minute, I've taken all those pictures. Yeah. I'm looking for somebody else's picture of cafes. Like well done us. Yeah, we were living our best life. I miss my life. Okay, topic. Yeah, this topic is really sad, but I'm genuinely excited about it because I got so much clarity from it, and I actually think it'll be really helpful to a lot of people. So our topic today is male depression, which we've done episodes just on depression in general. I read this book that my roommate recommended that I've highlighted and I've made craziness. But it's called I Don't Want to Talk About It,
Overcoming the Secret Legacy of Male Depression by Terrence Real. It blew my goddamn mind. I think I understood a lot of this. My funny aspect of it is like, I was like, oh my God, I have male depression. I was like, and I'm only kind of half joking because most of this book is talking about the unique pressures that men are under and the way that we raise boys and men that completely separate themselves from their true selves. And that's why we literally have depressed men, angry men, violent men, shut down men, what have you. And it's a unique type of setup for them that's often not talked about because it's such a societal norm to raise boys and men so differently from women. And so everybody talks about girls and women and the inferiority that we place on them, but very often, or not until recently, have people, like we talk about like male toxicity, but this kind of goes much deeper into how that started, why it started, and what the results are. And there's two things that were eye-opening to me. First, I was raised by my father, who is the utmost example of this male depression. And he had 3 girls first and then 2 boys. What I do appreciate about my dad, and I've talked about it before, is that like my dad would cook, my dad would clean, my dad changed diapers, but my dad, would chop wood, my dad would mow the lawn, my dad provided. So he kind of did everything, and he raised us that way. So we were responsible for our other siblings, but we were also responsible to mow the lawn and chop wood. And so we were I was very much a tomboy. I was raised as a boy.
Were you a little 10-year-old Les Mealy with an axe just chopping wood on a tree stump?
Yeah.
With a lumberjack shirt on?
Pretty much, probably, yeah. And
that's awesome.
You had to use your own money to buy clothes. So if you didn't use your own money to buy clothes, my dad would just buy us what he thought. So I was always a little saver. And so my dad would buy me these clothes that are ugly, but I was like, I don't want to spend my own money. And so I was either wearing like these flannels my dad gave me, hand-me-downs from my sister, or like I bought my own stuff, but not that I had to taste it either way. Everything I wore was pretty wrong, 80s and wrong. Either way, there's things about my dad that don't completely fall in line with that kind of toxic masculinity. But one of the things I've really pushed against was he raised us girls as just very like strong, independent women. And that was important to him. But the other thing he used to always say is control your emotions. Control your emotions. I'm not blaming my father, but a lot of damage was done with that, and a lot had to be undone. Then fast forward, they have 2 boys. My brothers are 9 and 11 years younger than me. And, my parents are older, they're tired, they were less strict. And my dad often says, he goes, the boys they're not I raised you girls tough, and they're just not man enough. They don't show. And I was like, excuse me? Like my dad will often talk about being, I don't want to say disappointed, but feeling like he did something wrong with my brothers. And I've so many times have been like, they are thoughtful, they are kind, they are loyal, they are good people. How dare you say that my brothers, there's something wrong with them? And like, don't get me wrong, we all have emotional issues, but like my brothers are incredible people. And he is holding them up to this 50 standard of masculinity that I think he's chasing himself, but somehow feels like he did a good job with us girls. Also, my dad also raised us like boys, but would criticize us for not being feminine enough. And that caused a lot of pain and anxiety. So basically, this book talks about a couple of different things that were really important. It talks about the way we raise boys and girls differently. And he doesn't elaborate too much on how we raise girls differently because it's talked about to extension, and this isn't about girls. And then he talks about the normalizing of bullying. And he talks about this thing called soul murder and how it's just normalized in boys, and just what manhood is in this performance-based self-esteem. And I'll kind of go through what all this is. And then what ends up happening is there's 2 types of depression that men go through when this is how they're conditioned. It's either covert depression or overt depression. So covert depression is you just don't feel right and you don't feel connected, and everything just kind of feels off, and maybe you lean on addiction or what have you, and you're functioning, but you're unhappy. And then overt depression is a typical depression we think of, which is can't get out of bed, crying all the time or upset, maybe suicidal, like this extreme version of depression. But what's really happening is so many men live their entire lives in this form of covert depression and never really understand why. So I'll kind of start with like how boys and girls are raised differently. Girls are encouraged to fully develop connection and relationships, but are discouraged from fully developing and exercising their public assertive selves. Boys are encouraged to develop the skills of public assertive action, but discouraged from fully developing and exercising their relational and emotional selves. So in general, women and girls are, stay in your place, speak when spoken to, this kind of like fit in kind of mentality, as opposed to boys, you're allowed to be your assertive, smart, whatever self that you believe, but emotionally connecting, vulnerability, all that stuff is just like bullied out of them either by their father and grandfather. And even if your parents do a good job, society is constantly calling you names, calling you, was it simp, pussy, gay, all the kind of ways of telling you anything feminine about you is fucked up and wrong. There was a passage, I cannot find it, but it made me like want to cry, where it's just like, society will forever remind you, you cannot show any vulnerability whatsoever. And it basically was like, you either lose yourself in chunks or it's just chipped away at you every single day. One of the things they talked about is how we raise boys to be soldiers, and we've never stopped doing it. We see boys as dispensable. Think of it in the old time ways, like everybody's on the Titanic, we save the women and children first. Men are disposable. We send men to war. Men are disposable. The society says that in some ways men are supposed to protect women, but also men are disposable. And I think it starts out like that you're literally a disposable human, but also that we try to numb them out and make them have no feelings whatsoever, so that they can be providers, so that they aren't weak in any kind of way. And it becomes perpetuating, where this is how your father was raised, and this is how you as a man is raised, and that's how you raise your kid. They basically say that boys and girls have the same amount of vulnerability, in some ways believe that boys are more sensitive, and they kind of grow at around the same level. And at some point they kind of tear them away from their mothers, either physically or emotionally, and say that they do not want boys to feel connected to their mother because they don't want them to turn out soft. And so then both the father or society will constantly send a message that anything soft about you will be bullied, ridiculed. You will literally physically get beat up because of it. So boys
are basically like living what jail life is like. It's like you have to go to jail going like, I'm alpha male, don't fuck with me,
from the beginning. And it's constantly reinforced from just. And so we talk about, as women, every magazine is a tiny, skinny woman with perfect skin, and she's a size 0, and, she has big boobs and her lips are perfect, and she's wearing a tiny dress. Like, we always say we have all this pressure to look like the perfect woman and to respond in the most muted, perfect way, and blah, blah, blah. And like, you have to be respectful, but somehow be slutty. Like all this stuff that seems like idealized, but is just not possible. But on the opposite spectrum, men are in the same place. Like, men are supposed to be these shut down people. And then they start dating and they date us. And we're like, fucking speak your fucking feelings. And they're like, I got rid of those years ago. Not even consciously. Yeah. There was a great TikTok. Every time I bring up TikTok, it makes me sound like a moron, but it was actually a really well, concise way of putting it. She goes, I think the hardest thing that I think is going on right now is that we raise men not to express themselves or have feelings. And then when they start dating, we women are cruel because they can't express themselves and they don't have feelings. Men are constantly failing about this perfect man that it just doesn't exist. And to be that perfect man is to completely separate yourself from connecting to others. So you live this really hollow, closed off life. And a lot of them aren't conscious of it because we've said this is normal. That we've said this is what a man. It's almost like, how like in ancient China, they used to bind women's feet. Like they basically like a tiny feet are beautiful, and they would bind them, and eventually they become
which are not beautiful. They
were not beautiful at all.
Feet.
They were, if you see pictures, they're horrific, but they would bind their feet and they eventually become crippled to the point where they couldn't walk. And you're like, how do you get so far in a society that breaking down women's feet and bones and making them unable to walk is a form of beauty. But the same, like, that's just a physical thing that is now looks like the same thing as men, is that we've crippled men's ability to connect with people to the point where they're not able to function. And that's why you have people shooting, that's why they're running into buildings and shooting people. That's why men have a higher suicide rate. We have raised men to be completely disconnected to the point where, like, they go to therapy and they go, how do you feel? And they go, I don't feel anything. They never consciously grew up with feelings because it was beaten out of them, both either emotionally or physically as kids. And so it made me understand very much my father. It made me understand a lot of myself because I was raised by my father. It made me understand a lot of the men I've dated and a lot of the depression a lot of the men I've known have gone through. And the biggest thing is, so one of the things he brought up was performance self-esteem. So performance-based self-esteem. And basically, we let men know that the only way that they can feel good about themselves is if they can show something for it. That's why you have that's why you have the rich CEO. That's why you have the men that are constantly striving for stuff, to the point where if they're not winning gold medals, if they don't have a shit ton of money, if they're not the CEO, they feel worthless. And the only way for them to feel good is by performing. But then you have these guys that have done what they're supposed to do. They provide for their family, they're super successful, but everybody in their life feels disconnected to them because that's not what they want from them.
Does your dad have friends?
No.
My dad doesn't really have friends. It's not like, it's not because like no one likes him. It's just not done. We just call your buddy up and just chit chat. Like, he just doesn't do that.
I had a really sad conversation with my dad because he's getting work. They just moved and they're getting work done on the house. And this older guy comes over. Let's call him Bill. This older guy, Bill, comes over, and my dad had picked something out. My dad has, not built, but like has overseen the building of his practice and of this house and stuff like that. So my dad, he's very hands-on. He's very, like I said, he's this guys that like very controlling. So this guy, Bill, is like, this is what he does. He installs this thing and he's looking at the house and he's admiring. He's like, wow, this is really beautiful. And this is really well organized. And my dad's like flat. He's like, thanks so much. And so they're talking about having, older kids, blah, blah, blah. And my dad's telling me, he's like, this guy was awesome. Like, my dad's literally like, this guy, Bill, he was over for 2 hours. He was helping me with the house. I really liked him. He lives in the town that we're in, blah, blah, blah. And I go, does he have more work to do at the house? And he goes, yeah, I think he has to come back in 2 weeks or whatever. I was like, you should ask him out for coffee. And he's like, what? And I was like, he's cool.
What?
I was like, he seems cool. It seems like you guys connected and you just moved to a new town. You need to make friends. You should. And my dad goes, I can't do that. First of all, my dad told me not to use the word can't. And I always love being like, can't or won't. Can't shouldn't be in your vocabulary. But I go, why, Dad? Why can't you do that? He goes, I just can't. And I was like, because if he said no, you would be embarrassed. He goes, probably. So a good example is, AJ Mendez was one of our guest Googles, and I became friends with her because I interviewed her for another podcast, and she lived in Chicago. So the next time I was in Chicago, I was like, hey, I'm in Chicago to do a gig. Do you want to get lunch? And she was like, yeah. And I knew it was a risk. I knew she could say no, but she said yes. And then we got lunch, and that furthered our friendship a little more. And then I was like, do you want to come to
lunch? That's what we do. Men don't lunch.
We do lunch. Do you want to do lunch in Paris? Why can't you ask your boys to get some scallops and wine in Paris? But you know what I mean? Like, it is absolutely scary at any part of your life to take somebody you don't know how they feel about you and take it to the next level and then just keep, you know what I mean? So like, I asked her to lunch, we had fun. And then I was like, do you want to come to my show? She came with her husband. And then the next time I was in New York, I was like, do you want to get coffee? And she's like, and it built over time, and we don't even live in the same city, but you have to take that risk of getting to know somebody. And my 60-something-year-old dad, I don't think he's done that since college. And then of course we all know
our dads should be friends.
I think they would be friends. They're both like 50s, hardworking, do what you have to do kind of dudes. And I think that's a way to connect. I think also having crazy daughters in comedy, they'd be like, yeah, fucking talk back.
I think they would start there. Yeah.
You tell her what to do and she doesn't listen? Yes.
Yes.
My dad is absolutely trapped in performance-based self-esteem. I know that for a fact. And he raised me that way. And I've been trying to undo that my entire
Is that like the
adult
Tim Ferriss thing? Like being an optimal human?
Absolutely. The way your body looks, the way your body functions. You know, I love my dad, and I'm not trying to shit on him, but my dad is disappointed in us. He's made it very clear that he had 5 kids and we didn't turn out the way he thought we would. And I know he's proud in some ends, but on the other, he had this idea of what we were going to be as.
Sorry.
What do you mean? What do you laughing
I
at?
remember catching my dad crying because he was like, I failed as a father. What do you do? Because you're like, that's me. That's my fault.
Yeah, he's crying about me. I think we bonded over
It
this.
was me and my brother. Thank you.
Yeah. I think we bonded over this because I remember this years ago. Is when my brother Sam was in and out of mental hospitals. I think he was literally heading off to another mental hospital and was like being crazy for whatever reason. I made $9 a day. Like I was my own issue. And then there's still 2 more of us, by the way. And my mom is standing in the driveway and she's crying. And my mom also doesn't really express herself. Can't understand why I'm in therapy. And I go, what's going on? And she goes, my kids are a disaster. And she didn't say like Sam's a disaster or M's a disaster. She said, my kids. Like she was just kind of like, fuck. And I was like, we're not that bad. Like now I'm the person she's shitting on. And I'm like, some of us are serial killers. Some of us make money. We're nice people.
I had nothing. I was like, you could have another one who'd be a lawyer and you'd be like, not a doctor. I'm like, they'll be a doctor.
You're creating this fantasy for your dad.
So just get back on topic. Because my dad screams when I was growing up a lot, just yelled a lot. Like I know people get angry, but it felt like that was default. Like that's just where he lived. And
I think that's where they have to go. So they told so many sad stories of fathers just reliving how their fathers treated them, but then also just there's no other way to express themselves other than anger. If your dad was mad at you, the better way to have done it is to sit you down and said, hey, I know cleaning your room doesn't seem like a big deal to you, but the way I see it is you clean your room and it shows responsibility and it shows, your ability to take care of yourself. And all I have to do as a father is raise you to be a person that takes care of themselves and eventually can take care of their family. And when you don't clean, you know what I mean? And like able to talk you through this instead of fucking clean, you know what I mean? And just like, and you're just like, hey, you're throwing more stuff. It's just more stuff to clean, Dad. Like, but I was raised by yellers. I was raised by the silent treatment. I was raised with neglect. I was raised by both spectrums of abuse. And it took me a long time to understand that. And again, no blame in what I'm saying. My parents did the best they could with what they had. They had almost no family and no money. And they had 5 children. And I can imagine that's quite stressful. That being said, my dad was raised without a mother and without a father. They were physically alive, but his mom was sick and bedridden and his dad worked 3 jobs and he was the oldest of 5 kids. My dad has been an adult probably since he was 9 years old. And then my mother lost her father when she was 10 and then lost her mother, as you know, they both lost their mothers to suicide, lost her mother in her early 20s. And then when her mom died, her older brother called her up and it was just like, you're an orphan now. Like her mom just died. And he goes, you're an orphan now. And of course she's 20. And, I was just like, these words all of a sudden put in perspective of how my mom became shut down. And my mom has more friends than my dad, but even like my Aunt Ann, who's one of my mom's oldest friends, no relation. Sometimes my Aunt Ann would be like, have you talked to your mom? She's not getting back to me. And I'm just like, Mom, get back to Aunt Ann. What are you doing? And she's like, oh yeah. Like even my mom, I have to be like, you gotta nurse your friendships. You can't let them die. Like, what are you doing? I was not taught to be a good friend by either of my parents. I was taught to be a good person. I was taught to be a people pleaser. I was taught to be responsible. I was taught to be thoughtful, but I wasn't taught to be a good friend because neither of them learned how to be good friends. They're just good people and people are attracted to them because they're funny and they're kind and they're smart. And
do you think that the next generation of boys will be given more leeway to be less toxic manly?
I think we're heading towards it, but I think it's going to take generations. Like, okay, so this is kind of dark, but you think about, the girl that was raped behind the dumpster by that guy Brock. It was like that big.
Oh my God. By Brock.
This guy named Brock something. It was a huge scandal for a bunch of reasons. He raped a girl behind a dumpster. These two other guys grabbed them and took them off. And then when he went to court, his father was like, you can't put him in prison. He has a great future.
Yeah, because he was like a athlete or something. Yes.
Yeah. And you're like, we can't punish him because he is going to be successful. Fuck off. Yeah. But you can look at the negative. You can look at this piece of shit Brock kid, and you can think about his piece of shit father, and you can see how that all became what it was. Or you can look at those two guys that saw a woman in distress or a woman that was passed out and fucking ripped this guy off and did their best to save her and hold this guy accountable. I see more and more of those two guys. I follow Upworthy on Instagram, and it's just socially conscious, emotionally conscious content. But it'll be like during this pandemic, it'll be a guy being like, hey, you haven't returned it was like a text message. Hey, you haven't returned my text in a while. I know things are really hard. If you need to talk, I'm here for you. And it's just another guy talking to another guy friend that I could see being unheard of. And I read a great article. Fuck, I forget where it was. I think it was like in the Washington Post or something about men having to change their relationship with other men, because it used to be like we would watch a sports game together, or we'd go get a beer together and we'd just talk about very surface stuff. Well, the Steelers, or I don't know anything about sports, but now, no sports were happening for
sorry. Just gonna make a joke. It's gone. Go on.
Just about how dumb I am and I shouldn't be allowed to talk. But this article is basically talking about how men have actually had to go deeper and had to connect on a different level because their ability to just surface connect isn't there anymore. There's no sports to watch. They can't unite. They can't just drink beers together. And they've seen literal signs of their friends not doing well mentally, and they've showed up. And I think it's extremely hard. I think as somebody that suffered with the inability to be vulnerable, I probably was covert depressed most of my life up until probably a couple of years into therapy. Oh, so I do want to say this to wrap up, because I thought it was really helpful. He breaks down how to go from covert depressed to overt depressed to feeling better. So he basically talks about healing. So covert depression, you found a way to survive in this shitty world, in this, you're a man, don't, be man enough, don't speak out. And it's usually some kind of addiction. And we all think like alcohol or drugs or whatever, but really it's a way, it's just something that you're able to do that you don't actually have to feel your feelings. So it could be TV, it could be food, it could be work, it could be video games. Doesn't matter what it is. It's just something that you use to not feel your feelings. So at first you have to figure out what you're doing and stop it. You know what I mean? Drinking, numbing yourself off with video games, whatever. Then, hopefully doing this with a therapist, but then you have to look at the dysfunctional patterns and how you, as a man, or, you could be a woman that's also dealing with covert depression, but attend to these dysfunctional patterns, whether it's bullying yourself, whether it's shitting on yourself and who you are as a person, shaming yourself. It has so much about shame and the shame spirals of like, you might feel shame, so you drink. And then because you're drinking and because you're an alcoholic, you feel shame, even more shame. And it's just this shame cycle. So why are you participating in these patterns? What are you doing, or what do you believe about yourself that's making you participate in this? And then you have to go deeper to the trauma that got you where you are today, whether it was something watching your dad beat your mother, whether it was something that happened to you at school, whether it was just society telling you you're not man enough. You have to deal with your childhood trauma and heal that. And I feel like I went through all those stages in therapy myself. And like, I have blogs deep on the internet about just and I read probably 10 books on finding happiness. I just didn't understand why I just felt so shut down and was sad all the time and functioning. I was doing comedy. I went to school. I had friends, but I just felt either numb or just like this low hum awful. And it wasn't until I hit deep depression after my breakup 10 years ago of being dumped and being in therapy and digging through all those layers of how I numb myself and how I feel about myself and why I feel the way I feel about myself, did I start to spurt back up and now I just feel content. I'm not saying I don't get sad. I'm not saying I don't have bad days. I'm not saying that I don't hit my own little baby humps of depression, but my equilibrium is now content. I feel good about myself. We as women do have more of an advantage. Talking about our feelings in general isn't weird. I know I have, including you, Carmen, Nitika. I have so many friends that saw me heading down and they were like, literally held me up for years. They were like, Liz isn't good. We gotta, seems to be crying all the time. So I think in general, women notice those things. They reach out more, they connect, they keep on you. I have so many friends that emotionally held me up and were there for me at my darkest times. And I don't know how many men have that. And if they do have that, they're extremely lucky. But cultivating that friendship and finding the men that they can connect with. I just, it's like this double-edged sword of like, no matter where you go, it's every guy was raised this way and every guy is fearful of showing up that way. And then even when you are healthy, society is always calling you a simp or a pussy or gay. Like they're everything that, because we have trained men to believe that any type of femininity is bad. Honestly, guys, it's an incredible book, whether you're a male or a female, but I probably have about 5 books on my list that have changed my life. And this is one of them.
What's it called again?
I Don't Want to Talk About It by Terrence Real. And he also has some really great talks on YouTube as well. Terry Real.
Write to us.
Yeah, write to us. I definitely want to know how our male fans, how you kind of broke through and how you started to kind of be more vulnerable. What was like the tipping point for you and how maybe you started to open up? Maybe this podcast made you realize that you haven't been opening up or that you don't have friends past a surface level. But we would love to hear from you and just hear your perspective on this, considering we're both women.
Yeah, definitely.
I just read a book. I read this book and I pretty much get you guys.
You can write to us at 2nondoctors@gmail.com, the number 2, full word doctors. And thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Guys.
Bye.